You want to know what breaks her faster than begging, arguing, or disappearing for a week? It's this: silence. The kind that comes when a man who once gave her all simply walks away and never looks back. No closure, no explanation, no apology. And suddenly, she's not in control anymore. She'll call you cold, heartless, distant. But what she won't admit is that your silence is a reflection of every time she ignored your value, mocked your efforts, and took your presence for granted. And now she's sitting with that silence, and it's screaming louder than any fight ever could. Comment: silence is power. If you've lived this truth, and if you want this message to reach more men, subscribe to the channel, because this is the insights the world never wanted us to have. Number 1. She craves your reaction. Women are not wired for indifference. She can process anger. She can handle jealousy. She might even enjoy the drama. But nothing crushes her faster than indifference. You stop responding, not out of bitterness, but because you've outgrown the emotional circus. And now she's left with the void. You know what that void feels like to her: a loss of relevance. It's not just that you didn't text her back. It's not just that you left her on red. It's that for the first time she's no longer the center of your attention. And for someone who's addicted to being seen, noticed, and emotionally catered to, that feels like death. Not physical death, but the kind that hits your ego, your sense of importance, your internal belief that I can have him whenever I want. See, most men don't realize just how much attention fuels her identity. You think she dresses up just for herself. You think she posts selfies just because she likes the filter? No, those are signals, beacons, traps. They're attempts to stay relevant in your mind. And when a man finally stops reacting, when he no longer replies to her bait, compliments her look, or plays into her attention economy, she feels not just rejected, but erased, gone, forgotten, nothing. And it tears her up more than any argument ever could. Because when you argue, when you get emotional, when you try to explain, you're still showing that she matters. You're still giving her power. But when you go quiet, she loses the lever. She loses the certainty. You become unpredictable. And unpredictable men are the most powerful in a woman's emotional world. Think about it. When you were chasing her, reacting to her games, explaining your feelings, she had full control. She could ignore you for days, reply with one-word texts, post thirst traps, flirt with other guys just to make you react. And every time you did, it confirmed one thing: she still has you. But now she doesn't know. She doesn't know if you're done. She doesn't know if you've moved on. She doesn't know if you've replaced her. And that uncertainty consumes her. It poisons her peace. It interrupts her nights. She scrolls through her phone waiting for a ping, checks your profile for clues, replays the last conversation trying to find where it shifted. Because silence doesn't just feel like absence. It feels like displacement. Someone else must be filling that spot now. Someone else must be getting the attention she used to own. And that right there is the consequence she never thought she'd face. Most women don't fear your anger. They fear your replacement, your evolution, your absence. So what do you do as a man who's tired of being emotionally manipulated? You stop feeding the monster. You stop arguing, explaining, chasing, checking in. You reclaim your focus. You hit the gym not for revenge, but for clarity. You wake up early not for spite, but for structure. You build your business, read more books, level up your finances, upgrade your wardrobe, fix your posture, not because you're trying to make her regret, but because you finally realize that you were the prize all along. And that's what she didn't expect. She expected you to break. She expected you to fall apart. She expected the late-night texts, the sad songs, the breakdowns. But now, you're unavailable, unreachable, unreadable. And the silence, it's working. because it forces her to reflect, not because she wants to, but because she has no choice. And that reflection hurts. It stings. It makes her see the times she disrespected you, devalued you, played with your time and emotions like they were disposable. And now those moments replay in her head while you're moving on, while you're glowing up, while you're becoming the man she never thought you could become without her. The key is this: don't break the silence. Don't fold when she suddenly checks in. Don't fall for the trap of, "How have you been?" That's not care. That's curiosity. That's her testing to see if you're still there, still emotionally invested, still one text away. Don't be. Let her face the consequences of taking you for granted. Let her see the version of you that doesn't need her validation to feel worthy. Because when you stop reacting, you start re-attracting, not her, but your dignity, your self-respect, your direction. That's what this is about. Not revenge, not bitterness, just becoming so locked into your purpose, your evolution, your peace, that nothing she does can pull you off track. And if she comes back, if she suddenly remembers your worth, understand this: she's not coming back for love. She's coming back for control. Don't give it to her, not again. You already learned the lesson once. Now apply it. Keep your silence. Let it do what your words couldn't. And every time you feel the urge to respond, to explain, to reach out, remember how she made you feel when you were still reacting, when you were still explaining your loyalty to someone who didn't care. That version of you, he's gone, buried in the silence, and in his place stands a man who no longer reacts, but chooses. A man who no longer explains, but evolves. That man, that's you now. Let the silence speak louder than anything you ever said. And as you sit deeper in that silence and feel the shift within you begin, you realize something profound. This isn't just recovery, it's rebirth. And if you've felt every word of this truth, if your heart is pounding because you know this is your story, your fight, your rise, don't walk away empty-handed. I put everything into the Stoic Relationship Blueprint, a guide built for men like you who've lived the chaos and are ready to build peace that lasts. It's not just a book, it's your weapon, your shield, your compass. You'll learn exactly how to master your emotions, set unbreakable standards, and never again tolerate what breaks you. The link is in the comments, and once it's yours forever. No subscriptions, just pure, permanent, life-changing insight that you can come back to whenever you need it. Number 2, she can't control the narrative. She can't control the narrative anymore, and that truth eats her alive. See, women don't just fear being abandoned, they fear being misunderstood without the power to fix the perception. And when you go silent, not weakly, not temporarily, but with full conviction, she's left holding a story that she can no longer rewrite. She can't twist the facts. She can't paint you as the bad guy. Because you didn't yell, you didn't beg, you didn't leave angry voicemails or reckless posts. You just vanished, not emotionally, spiritually, fully, calmly. And now she's left in a space she's never had to exist in before: accountability. See, as long as you were talking, she had an angle. As long as you were reacting, she had a storyline. He's obsessed with me. He can't let go. He's immature. But silence doesn't give her anything to work with. And for a woman who built her emotional leverage through words, games, and emotional volatility, being cut off with zero access is a crisis she didn't prepare for. Imagine the discomfort of knowing someone once adored you, but now won't even blink in your direction. That discomfort isn't heartbreak, it's narrative collapse. You used to chase her. Now you're out of range. You used to explain yourself. Now you've stopped defending who you are. You used to argue. Now you've realized arguing with someone who's addicted to control is like throwing logic at a wall that only reflects manipulation. And in that moment she realizes she has no power over how others see you anymore. She can't warn them. She can't prep them. She can't play the role of the wounded queen because you left the stage with no applause, just complete soul-shaking quiet. And what happens next? She scrambles. She tries to control the perception through others, her friends, her stories, her inspirational quotes. But here's where it gets tragic. People start asking questions. Why did he stop talking? Why did he go ghost after giving so much? Why is she the only one still trying to explain her side? And with every vague answer, every deflection, she digs herself deeper into her own trap, because your silence has become the mystery, the narrative that no one can understand, and yet everyone feels. You ever walk into a room and feel someone's absence more than their presence? That's you now. She feels you everywhere and nowhere, because your story no longer belongs to her. You took it back, you reclaimed it, and now she's stuck telling a story that no longer includes your voice. And when she realizes that, truly realizes it, she panics, because the power wasn't in the love you gave. It was in the story you allowed her to tell, the story where she was the victim, the muse, the misunderstood angel who had to walk away. But now you're gone, and the story stopped. And what she's left with is the silence that reflects her part in your ending. You know how powerful that is. To walk away so cleanly that her only weapon is speculation. That's real control. Not over her, but over yourself. And it terrifies her. Not because you did something cruel, but because you stopped giving her anything to spin. You know the worst thing for someone addicted to control? Losing the script. And now she's improvising, making up reasons, trying to insert herself into your new life, watching your stories, liking your posts, showing up in the background of places she thinks you'll be. But you don't react, you don't flinch, because you know something she doesn't. Peace is louder than performance. You've stopped being an actor in her emotional theater, and without your lines, the entire production collapses. She can post all the thirst traps, write all the poetic captions, throw all the indirects. But without your reaction, it all falls flat, because now she's the only one performing, and everyone sees it, especially her. She can't spin the story if you don't engage. She can't edit the past if you won't narrate the present. She can't sell the fantasy if you won't buy the script. That's what happens when a man becomes untouchable. Not because he's unavailable, but because he's uninterested in retelling a lie that served her and destroyed him. You're not her villain. You're not her ex. You're not her unfinished chapter. You're gone. And she can't handle the silence because it's not just quiet. It's closure. The kind she didn't approve. The kind she can't explain. And for someone used to controlling the narrative, that silence is louder than any confession she could fabricate. So what's your move? You stay silent. You keep building. You let your actions become your autobiography. Because at the end of the day, stories fade, but transformation is undeniable. And when she sees the man you've become without her name in your mouth, without her story in your feed, without her chaos in your mind, that's when it hits her. She didn't just lose the argument. She lost the author. The man who once wrote her into his future has removed her from his pen. That's the power she'll never get back. That's the control she never expected to lose. And that's why your silence isn't just revenge, it's revelation. Number 3, her imagination becomes her enemy. When you stop talking, she doesn't relax. She overthinks, overanalyzes, and slowly self-destructs. Her imagination becomes her enemy the second you go quiet, not because you left in chaos, but because you left in peace. And that's the detail she can't process. She is used to men chasing her shadow, begging for closure, trying to explain away their pain. But you just walked off the stage mid-performance and never returned for the applause or the encore. and now she's trapped backstage with no audience, no script, no direction. You become a blank canvas for every fear she's buried under years of validation. She doesn't just wonder where you are, she obsesses over it. She doesn't ask what went wrong. She rewrites the entire timeline in her head, trying to find a moment where she could have lost you, trying to make it make sense, but it never will, because her control is gone. The moment you stopped feeding her emotional addiction, her mind began to spiral into dark alleys of regret and paranoia. She replays conversations, stalks your digital presence, asks mutual subtle questions, reads between lines that don't even exist, because when you were loud, she could predict you. But now your absence is unpredictable, and it drives her mad. She tells herself lies to feel better. He must be seeing someone, he's probably just busy, he'll come back. But when none of those lies get confirmed, her mind turns on itself. She starts internalizing the silence as a reflection of her own inadequacy, because women measure their value by a man's attention, and when that attention disappears without a trace, she feels like a discarded product, not just unwanted, but replaced without explanation. And this is where your silence starts doing work you never could with your words, because every argument, every emotional plea, every reaction used to give her ground to stand on, to fight, to manipulate. But now she's arguing with a ghost, pleading with a version of you that no longer exists. This isn't cruelty, it's clarity. You've finally decided to choose peace over chaos, growth over dysfunction, silence over noise, and in that decision, you strip her of her favorite weapon, drama. And without drama, she has to face something far scarier than losing you, facing herself. Because if you're not texting her at 2 a.m., if you're not watching her stories, if you're not reacting to her provocations, then she's left with only one question: why not? And the answer she avoids is the one that haunts her. You've evolved past her. You've upgraded your standards. You've shifted your energy from begging to building, from convincing to conquering. And that shift doesn't just bother her. It destroys the illusion she had of herself. She thought she was irreplaceable, unforgettable, untouchable. But your silence proved otherwise, not with loud declarations, but with quiet detachment. And this is where your power lies, not in trying to make her see your worth, but in removing your worth from her access. Because the less she knows, the more she suffers. The less you explain, the more she questions. The less you react, the more she reflects. And in this endless loop of overthinking, she realizes the truth. Your silence is not confusion, it's conclusion. You've moved on, and her mind becomes her punishment. Every day she checks her phone, hoping for a sign, a crack in your resolve, something that tells her she still matters. And every day that silence continues, her sense of self decays. She posts more, but it doesn't help. She dates others, but it doesn't stick. Because no man can match the man who left quietly with his dignity, who loved her deeply, but walked away with his soul intact. That man doesn't beg. That man doesn't return. That man, you, left her in a war with her own thoughts, and that war is long, painful, and undefeated. Her imagination becomes her enemy, not because you disappeared, but because you did so with grace. And the most painful part, she knows it's over, but she can't prove it. So she lives in limbo, haunted by the possibility that she destroyed the only man who ever truly cared. And that, more than any silence, is the scream she hears every night before she sleeps. Number 4. She feels replaced instantly. The moment you go quiet, she doesn't assume you're hurting. She assumes you've moved on, and that assumption destroys her faster than any fight ever could. Because in her world, she was the main character, the one no man could ever get over, the emotional center of your universe. But when the texts stop, when the energy dries up, when the calls stop coming, she feels it in the deepest part of her identity. she's been replaced. Not because you said it, not because you showed it, but because your silence now carries weight, and that weight crushes the pedestal she thought she was sitting on. She thought she had time, options, leverage. She thought you'd always be there, orbiting, waiting, holding space for her to finally choose you. But now you've gone dark, quiet, focused. And in that vacuum, she imagines you smiling more, laughing with someone else, waking up next to a woman who doesn't drain you, one who actually sees you. That image doesn't just sting, it terrifies her. Because in her ego, she was always the standard, the one you could never upgrade from. But deep down, she knows the truth. You didn't need better looks, you needed better peace. And that peace is something she could never offer, because she was chaos wrapped in pretty packaging. And now that you've removed yourself, she sees it. She scrolls your page, hoping to find pain, to find hints of longing. But what she finds instead is a man who's finally free. She sees the gym selfies, the travel, the business milestones, the book highlights, and she doesn't just see success. She sees herself missing from the picture, and that absence is louder than any breakup text you could have sent. Because she knows, without a doubt, she used to be the reason you smiled, and now someone else, or maybe just your own growth, is doing what she never could. And that realization, it cuts deeper than any insult. She gets angry, not because you wronged her, but because you healed without her. She reaches out subtly, likes your story, reacts to your post, sends a random, "Hey," just to see if you'll crack, but you don't. Because you're not playing that game anymore. You're not the man who needs her attention to feel valuable. You're not sitting by the phone, waiting to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. And in doing so, you've reminded her that attention is not loyalty, validation is not love, and consistency beats chaos every single time. You were consistent, she was confusing. You were grounded, she was emotional roulette. And when you finally stopped spinning the wheel, she realized the game was over, and she lost. Now she sits with that loss, and it burns every time she sees you smile without her. She wonders if she's been replaced, but the truth is, she replaced herself with her own behavior. You gave her the blueprint, the effort, the stability, but she wanted fireworks instead of foundation. And now she's watching from the sidelines while you build a life she never thought you could build without her. But you are, and that's what shatters her. Not the silence, not the new girl, not even the growth. It's the fact that you didn't need her to become the man she pretended to support. You became that man in spite of her. And that evolution? That's the closure she never saw coming. She feels replaced because she knows she gave you every reason to leave and no reason to stay. And while you're finally becoming who you were always meant to be, she's stuck reliving the day you went quiet and never looked back. Number 5. Silence equals rejection of validation. Women live off validation the way men need air when they're underwater. It's not a luxury, it's survival. And when a man goes silent, really silent, not to manipulate her, but because he finally respects himself enough to remove himself from the insanity, what you're really doing is cutting off her lifeline. That silence doesn't just confuse her, it starves her. It dries up the well she once drank from every time her ego needed quenching. You were the one who replied within seconds. You were the one who reassured her when she withdrew. You were the one who made her feel seen when the rest of the world didn't care. And because of that, she never had to wonder if she was enough. But the day you stop responding, the day you choose peace over performance, she doesn't feel empowered, she feels rejected. And not in a dramatic, "you hurt me" way. It's deeper than that. It's existential, because she doesn't know who she is without male attention. She built an identity around being admired, wanted, pursued. It's what fills her Instagram with selfies, her stories with quotes, her texts with half-baked games that scream, "Notice me," without saying it outright. And now, you don't notice, you don't chase, you don't reply, and that lack of attention becomes her identity crisis. You see, validation to her isn't just about being loved, it's about control. Every like, every message, every compliment was a reminder that she mattered more than your boundaries, your peace, or your sanity. She could act however she wanted, and you'd still be there. She could disrespect you, ignore your needs, vanish for days, and you'd still validate her with effort, presence, and emotional energy. And now, you've stopped. You didn't shout, you didn't warn, you just went ghost. And in doing that, you destroyed the system she used to keep her ego alive. Now she posts, but it doesn't hit the same. Now she walks into rooms, but no one gives her the attention you used to. Now she dates other men, but they don't give her the same value because you set a standard she can't replace. And the worst part? She doesn't miss you because she loves you. She misses you because you were her source of significance. And now, without you, she's just another woman with a phone full of men who want her body, but not her soul. She realizes that what she once had with you wasn't common. You didn't just validate her looks, you validated her story, her dreams, her broken pieces, and she threw it away for what? A few likes, a temporary power trip, an illusion of being irreplaceable. And now she's starving for that kind of validation again, but she's too proud to admit it, so she pretends she's glowing, pretends she's happy, pretends she's free, but deep down, she's empty. Because the attention she gets now is surface level, but what she had with you was depth, and your silence exposes that. Your silence shows her that the well is dry, that no one is coming to fill the void, and that's where the pain begins. So what do you do as a man? You stay silent, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. You rebuild your world without her in it. You become your own source of validation. You hit the gym, not for revenge, but for renewal. You build your business, not to impress her, but to impress yourself. You evolve, not to prove her wrong, but to prove you were never dependent on her validation in the first place. And every time she tries to pull you back in, you remember this. Attention isn't affection. Presence isn't loyalty. Words aren't change. Let her sit in that silence. Let her miss the man who saw her for more than her image. Because in your silence, you're giving her the gift she never wanted, the truth. Number 6. She starts looking inward. The most dangerous thing you ever did to her wasn't yelling or arguing, it was disappearing. Because your disappearance forced her to look inward, and for someone who spent her whole life looking outward for validation, attention, and distractions, that's a hell far worse than heartbreak. You see, as long as you were present, she could blame you. As long as you were texting, calling, reacting, she could say you were needy, insecure, emotional. But now, in the dead quiet of your absence, she has to ask herself questions she's never asked. Did I push him away? Was I the problem? Did I ruin something real for a temporary thrill? And the truth? She did. She mistook loyalty for weakness. She called consistency boring. She chased chaos and labeled it passion. And now, she's alone with the mirror she never dared look into. This isn't just reflection. It's reckoning. Because she's not just looking at what you did. She's seeing what she did. She sees the manipulation, the gaslighting, the double standards. She sees how she dismissed your pain, mocked your growth, laughed at your dreams. And now that you're gone, she's realizing she wasn't the prize. She was the lesson. And that realization hits harder than any message you could have sent. Because when a man who once gave her everything now gives her nothing, it forces her to evaluate whether she was ever worth it in the first place. And this is where transformation begins. Not for her, but for you. You see, your silence isn't punishment, it's permission. It's permission for her to finally grow up, to finally feel the weight of her actions, to finally understand what happens when a man walks away without bitterness, without noise, just silence and self-respect. And if she's smart, she'll use that silence to grow. But most won't. Most will project, deflect, distract. They'll find another man to play the same game with. But deep down, they'll know they lost someone who was real. And you rise. You take this moment to level up in ways she never imagined. You take responsibility for your part, yes, but you never take on the shame she tried to assign to you. You write your goals down. You hit your targets. You master your emotions. You develop stoic discipline. You speak less, observe more. You understand that energy is currency, and you stop wasting yours on people who treat it like loose change. And in doing that, you become the man you were always meant to be, not bitter, not broken, but built. Built from silence, built from reflection, built from the fire of being ignored, disrespected, and finally choosing not to fight for someone who never intended to keep you. And that man becomes untouchable, not because he can't be loved, but because he refuses to be mishandled. Let her look inward. Let her face the ghosts. Let her drown in the silence she once weaponized against you. Because now, it's working against her. And every time she looks in the mirror, she'll remember the man who was willing to give her the world, and the day she taught him to stop. Number 7. Evolve in silence. Evolve in silence, not for revenge, not for drama, not even for closure, but because your evolution is not a performance, it's a process, and real growth doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself over time through transformation so undeniable, it speaks louder than any comeback ever could. The moment you go silent, you're not just walking away from her. You're walking back to yourself, to the version of you that existed before the manipulation, before the disrespect, before the emotional exhaustion, before you lost pieces of yourself trying to hold on to someone who treated your love like a convenience. This silence is not emptiness. It's the echo of peace returning to a mind that was once flooded with noise. It's the reset button, the stillness between battles, the fertile soil where strength, clarity, and purpose grow. She expects you to scream, to post, to spiral, to beg, but you don't. And in that restraint, you reveal a truth most men never discover. You don't have to fight for someone to know you've changed. Your absence communicates more than your presence ever did. You show her, and the world, that the man who once explained himself now moves in such focused silence that only his results speak. She stalks your profile, hoping for pain, but finds purpose. She reads your captions, hoping for heartbreak, but finds wisdom. She watches your evolution like a deleted chapter of a book she thought she'd already finished. And now she realizes the story is still being written, just without her. But this isn't about her anymore. This is about you, about the man who finally chooses his purpose over her potential, about the man who finally understands that silence is not surrender, it's selection. You're choosing what you give your time to, your energy, your attention, your emotion. And none of that will be wasted again on people who see your loyalty as desperation. You rise, not loudly, not with petty posts or attention-seeking moves, but with quiet discipline. You start writing down your goals, not vague dreams, but specifics: body, income, routine, skill, schedule. You don't just wish, you build. You don't just talk, you execute. Every morning you wake up earlier. Every day you push harder. You outwork the pain, outgrow the patterns. You surround yourself with men who speak truth, not comfort. You read books that sharpen you, not distract you. You create structure where there was chaos. You journal when your mind is heavy. You sweat out the demons in the gym. You speak less and observe more, and slowly, day by day, you evolve. People start noticing. Your posture changes, your tone sharpens, your boundaries harden. You smile more, but not because you're over her, because you're becoming you again. And here's the part she never saw coming. Your silence isn't just distance, it's proof that she never broke you. She just rerouted you. You didn't die in that heartbreak. You were reborn in it. And now you're dangerous. Not because you hate her, but because you don't need her. That detachment, that peace, that drive, it makes you untouchable. Other women notice it. Opportunities start appearing. You speak less, but when you do, every word lands with weight. You no longer entertain chaos. You no longer chase anyone. You're a man who values his time like gold, his energy like oxygen, his peace like his life. And that standard filters out everything that used to destroy you. And now, when she reaches out, when she circles back, when she realizes she gambled and lost, you don't react. You don't reply. Not because you're cruel, but because you've outgrown the version of yourself that would. She thinks she still has access, but the password has changed. And the door, it's locked, not out of spite, but out of healed self-worth. You've learned that loyalty without reciprocity is self-betrayal, that love without respect is manipulation, that effort without acknowledgement is slavery. And you're not a slave, not anymore. You're a man building something so big, so unshakable, that silence is your soundtrack, growth is your anthem, and peace is your legacy. You understand now that evolution doesn't need witnesses, it just needs time. So you stop explaining, stop proving, stop chasing. You work, you build, you evolve in silence. And when the world finally sees what you've become, it'll be too late for anyone who doubted you, especially her, because by the time she realizes who you were becoming, you'll already be gone. If you're done explaining yourself to women who weaponize your loyalty, and you're ready to become the man who never gets played again, this is your moment. Comment, never again. If you're ready to rise, like this video, subscribe, and help bring these truths to more men who are still chasing ghosts, wasting years on women who would never sacrifice a minute for them. And if you're serious about becoming untouchable, not just surviving relationships, but dominating every one of them with clarity, strength, and peace, then grab the Stoic Relationship Blueprint right now. It's linked in the comments, and once you own it, it's yours for life. No woman can take it. No situation can erase it. You'll never be the same man again.